You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, King Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's Archer After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Archer After Show.
Yeah.
All right there, Internet. How are you lovely people doing tonight? Bing is for doing, and we're here doing AfterBuzz TV After Show episode for Archer. It's the 3rd episode of this lovely 4th season that we've gotten ourselves into. Title is Apt Enough. Legs.
Legs.
She's got legs. She knows how to use them. Some old dudes in a beard said that once.
She's got legs. What type of joke are you trying to make? We're just going to tie that to news and gossip now when we get there, and then...
Yeah, we have an interesting article to discuss with you. But before all that...
Ooh, good tease there.
Thank you. Let's get into this episode we just watched.
Great goodness.
Heyo.
Or actually, let's introduce ourselves, probably.
Yeah,
whatever.
Everyone. I'm Greg Goodness.
I'm John Barrett.
Guys, I'm Dave Klein.
I'm Scott Moore.
Yeah.
And tonight we saw a really interesting, bloody, but ultimately pretty enjoyable episode of Archer.
There really was a lot of blood. I didn't even... this is how bad I've gotten from watching shows like Walking Dead. I didn't even notice until you said that. I'm like, oh, I guess you're right. There was a lot of blood, wasn't there?
It is animated blood, so there is that.
All right, I guess there was.
I mean, a few gallons. What's that these days? So we saw a lot of blood. We also saw reoccurring characters.
Lots of old friends.
Yeah, people popping back up. The one that I was most surprised about, Conrad. I was just thinking the other day, Conrad from season 1 got his hand torn off when he was airlifted off by a helicopter to escape Archer with a briefcase full of, I'm assuming, launch codes, right? That's probably
like
what
that.
it was.
That's what it was.
And we see just a little brief snippet of him here. Krieger has repaired him, made him bigger, better, faster, stronger than he was before. Basically by adding his hand back onto his body.
Well, like a bionic hand.
Right.
You know?
A stronger, better bionic hand.
We also get Ron, the new husband, and Rodney, the guy at the armory. But here's one, a smaller one that no one else mentioned when we were talking about this. Brett is back.
That's right. We also see, so now we're not even doing the hat trick of comedy number 3. We got 4 reoccurring characters that I don't think we were necessarily expecting to see again.
I was pretty sure Brett was dead.
Okay.
I thought he died.
Well, we had a couple we were expecting to see.
Yes.
We had a couple.
But we were expecting to see, at least Rodney and Ron back, and this episode kind of brought us back to the first episode. So we brought back those characters from at least the season, but I was definitely not expecting to see the other ones.
You know what I'd love to talk about briefly too is the relationship that Ron and Mallory have, because we kind of see Ron constantly pissing Mallory off, and at first you're kind of thinking, all right, I don't see why she married him, and then he lays out his joke, his racist joke, and that's of course what brings her in. She's like, that's why I love him.
That's why I can't stay mad at him.
Yeah.
This is a very small thing, but I just love that what happens for her to make her face at him is that he puts the, he brings up the paper, and the title of the paper is The Paper.
Good catch.
Sort of a callback to Frisky Dingo, where they
live in the town.
Yeah, just the town, no distinction, because none necessary. Yeah. That's a good point. That really you don't see him and Mallory getting along at all, which is strange. But as you see it play out, you say, okay, so this is Ron can actually keep up with Mallory, which is, I guess, what she sees in him, maybe?
I mean, you can see that they've clearly, at this point, it's taking place after the first few months they've been together, after that first episode, and you can see how well he kind of knows her, as just indicated, like, honey, you always do this, you always overstress like this. And I think that's also what's constantly pissing her off, is that he's just like, you're always like this, you always do this. But he is, as you said, able to level her out and hold her down and get her to do the things that she wouldn't normally do, like just leave it alone, go on vacation, leave it to the professionals, who are professionals.
They're there to manage. That are there to manage the
hire people you can trust, and they will manage people.
I would not trust any of those people with a car dealership. I don't trust any
Wouldn't
of
trust
them
them
with
with
anything.
anything.
I mean, look how Rodney did with managing an armory. With people who are allegedly good at dealing with weapons.
Yeah, right.
Well, Rodney, when you think about it, is really the only person who's actually doing his job correctly.
That's a good point.
If you think about it.
Yes.
Very snarkily. If
Yes.
snarkily, that's a word. Sure, why not?
Make it a word right now if it's
Yeah,
not.
I went snarkily in the Caribbean. Yeah, but he is actually doing his job to some extent, that he is enforcing this rule of, okay, you can't take anything out. But it's not even so much a desire to be good at his job. I think it's a desire to anger everyone around him. If he could do that without doing his job, at least in the brief glimpses that we've got of him so far, that's the impression that I get.
Yeah, I feel like his main concern is just making people upset. I think that's spot on. I think you're a really good judge of character.
That's his
Greg.
only thing of power that he has is that armory there. So he's gotta hold the power there.
But boy, does he have a lot of power in that armory. So, I mean, speaking of the armory, though, let's talk about how it's got the bulletproof window shield, or the shield where you can't get through, the door to get through that there's no way to get through, and then he even has a way to lock it down so you can't leave it. So people would just be trapped there. And I kind of thought that was just going to be a joke at the beginning of the episode, and they ended up playing it out at the end as well, which was fun to see.
I mean, not even just the beginning of the episode, but this is a whole new set piece that we're seeing incorporated into the show. And not something like we had, I think back in last season, they converted the downstairs into a bar/dry cleaner. And it was a nice little throwaway. You don't really see it again after that. But at least the way that they've set this up so far, the armory is actually going to become a major set piece, something that they keep going back to and keep having interactions with. John, you had an interesting theory that technically is more of a prediction, but we're going to let it slide because I want to hear this, and I think it relates very heavily.
I think we're gonna see one of them fishbowl episodes in the armory. I think someone is going some combination of characters are gonna end up trapped in there.
I think during the first episode when we were having this discussion, I kind of brought up that I thought we would see it again, and I was hoping we would. And like you were just saying, we don't see that a lot. And it wasn't just brought back, but it really became a central point to this episode, where it was kind of central, a little point that was kind of just a nugget that you feel a little bit. Actually, I think that was episode 2, in last week's episode. And they really brought it back in a big way this episode. So I think you're right. I think we are going to keep seeing more of it.
And I think that ultimately it's a good move for the show, because you need to have some place that's grounded. You always had Mallory's office, but that gets kind of old. It's a little too easy to leave, a little too easy to get out of. This is, you're going to a place where there's instantly conflict, because you instantly, no matter what, now have to deal with Rodney, who just enjoys taking I guess you could call them prescriptions for guns. Which brings me to my next point. I really think we need prescriptions for guns in this country. No,
that's a whole other point that could go on for days and days. But I was going to say that it adds the conflict, but also adds a new dynamic too as the show continues to move on, which is nice to have something new in there, to put in new characters, new things going on.
I mean, also along the sort of new set piece line, it's a spy agency. Really, I feel like the administration of a spy agency is less of a thing. And the going and getting weapons at a spy agency is probably something that happens a lot more on the day-to-day operations. So I think it makes more sense to have this place for set pieces to play out, you know?
And I think another way that we'll probably see it played out too in the future was you had the whole theme of the episode with the armory is that they can't get the weapons they want to get, but we never actually saw that truly played out on a mission. And I feel like this will be a way to hold it back, because before they just had every insane weapon they could possibly want, and this could bring a plot point where they're on a mission and they're just complaining the whole time like, well, if only I could get that rocket launcher, but I couldn't because of Rodney, and I think it could lead to fun complications and missions.
I think that, John, the point that you brought up about the administration aspect of it is kind of interesting because it relates back to what Adam Reed originally said about the series, which is that it's a workplace comedy, but with spies. So now, as opposed to we've seen tons of these crazy locations, we've literally gone to space to carry out all these insane operations. And now we're finally getting back to the nitty-gritty of, oh, well, you want a box of pens? There's going to be some severe ramifications.
You have to have a form for that if you want to take out a box of pens.
You have to go crawling back to Mother if you want a pen. God forbid bullets. Bullets that you're going to put into poor Brett's spine. And to be fair, no, it's kind of backtracking. We didn't actually see Brett. So Brett might be a thing.
Well, we saw stuff that was formerly him.
Right, we saw the blood of Brett, but that's not enough of a distinguishing characteristic. I think it was a red herring.
I don't know, with that ricochet, it could be the best shot ever, as we were finding out.
Yeah, this is a little off topic. Super bummed we didn't get to find out what actually happened with that bullet.
The magic bullet?
Yeah.
The full scope of how it bounced. It hit a water cooler, a fire extinguisher, railing.
Cyril's watch.
Oh, the pocket watch, yeah. God, that was fun to trace.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the internet draws a diagram for that.
That would be
Get
great.
on that,
Get on that right now, please.
Internet, if we don't have that by the end of this show, we're not coming back next week. That's not true.
Okay, so
I was like, that's not a good thing.
that gives you like 15 minutes.
Everyone was just like, oh,
Who cares?
do we really have to hold up to that? Did John just throw down the gauntlet and now we have to leave forever?
There was one person somewhere out there going, good.
That's what I'm saying.
One?
No,
there
watch-
was one person out there?
We're
Well,
gonna see
you
that
have
in the
your
comments.
fan.
We're definitely gonna see that in the comments section too, coming up. Also in the armory though, we had Cheryl the whole time sharing the space with Archer as he's going insane, and we get to see Cheryl, her tendencies, her sexual tendencies coming back again. Man, is she turned on by anything after Archer
that's gonna
slaps
be
her.
that's,
Anything.
that's gonna be her spot from now on, huh?
She's just going
She-
to lock people down in there.
Because if she gets like her engine's running from emotional abuse, Rodney's her man.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
That's-
Literally separated. Literally can't get to him. Emotionally. Behind the glass.
He's such a tease, as she says.
It was fun to see too. It's like if you look every time she's touching someone, they just slap her hand away with just like a bug. Like you just like slap it away without thinking about it while they're looking somewhere else.
Only making it worse. She's only going to come
right.
back for more. The more you slap her out of the way. the
She
more-
likes that violence.
She
She
really,
likes that touch.
Speaking of violence, you guys hear of iTunes?
There's a lot of
What's
violent
that?
shows on iTunes.
iTunes is a thing. It's like a space capsule of awesome. And they have a podcast thing. This is a podcast. What you're listening to right now is a podcast. Unless you're watching it, then it's like a...
Video cast.
Yeah, that's it. That's the word.
Color.
And you can find us in that little iTunes podcast center. And one thing you can do there, if you find us there, is rate and comment on our lovely little show. It gives us some feedback. Lets us know what you think, how you feel about us, about the show. And it really helps us out. So find us there. Say some things.
You can just tell us about your day. I just want to know if you had like a great burrito or, you know, someone cut you off this morning. Write it all down, man. We want to know.
We want your burrito stories.
Yes, and where you got them from.
And guys,
go there.
please do go, especially if it's an everything burrito. And guys, please go to YouTube as well. Rate, comment. We'll go ahead and talk about your comments at the end of the show as well. And you can also join us on the live chat at AfterBuzzTV.com at 9:30 p.m. on the West Coast. That's 12:30 a.m. on the East Coast. And if you guys join our live chat, I'll go ahead and read your comments during the live chat, and you guys can comment in, be part of the show, and join in.
Right on.
Rock and roll. Tell your friends.
Hey, we just talked about a lot of technology, guys. You know what else is technology?
Bionic legs.
Yes.
Whoa.
You knew exactly where I was going with that. You
I
just
wonder
cut
why.
me right off.
I wonder how I knew that.
I don't know. You're just that good.
I'm
John.
clairvoyant, guys.
So Ray becomes what Archer fears the most.
A gay Terminator.
Is that someone who terminates?
I think
No.
they're asexual, aren't they?
Terminators are asexual, yeah.
I think they're asexual.
I was actually wondering about that after this. I was like, wait, did Arnold ever have any like sexual impulses? Like I couldn't remember. It seemed that there were some vague sexual tensions going on between him and Sarah Connor.
Little overtones there of sexuality, of course.
Right. But
we segued.
yeah. So what do you guys think of this? Ray as a cyborg, as it were. I was not expecting it. I thought that this time Adam Reed had finally written himself into a corner and Ray was not coming out of that chair. Ray was going to be wheelchair bound for the rest of his days.
I think during our news and gossip 2 weeks ago, you commented that it was kind of brought up that this episode was coming, but had I not heard that, I wouldn't have seen it coming, and I really thought at the end of the season 3 that, well, it looks like Ray is actually screwed, and he's never going to be able to be an agent again.
Right.
I thought he was just screwed.
I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have thought about it either. But that's the great thing about animation is you can go anywhere you want to go, and so, yay, I love it.
And
except I wasn't expecting it to be so bloody.
Yeah,
that was some bloody surgery there that they had going on.
all over the beer.
Well,
Tall boys
Yeah.
at that,
Yeah.
by the way. Not just drinking a six-pack during surgery, a six-pack full of tall boys.
I wonder what kind of beer she was drinking. I'm gonna say it's probably something like Narragansett.
I'm
I thought it
willing
was
to
gonna
bet
be
she has a...
Budweiser. It looked. I'm just thinking Budweiser in a can.
Well, it's like instead of adding a lime, you're
There you
supposed to
go.
add blood to it for the
Yeah,
taste.
that's what it is.
What it was. I love the intro to the episode 2 with Ray, where you're seeing every way that he's been screwed because of his legs not working, and especially with Archer having parked in this spot, and then the elevator not working, and it's just great having that intro with him too into the episode.
I also love him holding his colostomy bag, and then the next thing he runs into is Archer, which prompts the hilarious line, "Oh, and there's the other shit bag in my life."
Dave, you're absolutely right. That was a great opening to the episode to set up exactly why we need to get Ray out of this chair. I mean, beyond the fact that like it's a miracle of science and it would be probably just a nice thing to do. This is a serious impediment to Ray's life, and we've already established that he can't be a great field agent in a wheelchair. The van is too heavy, as it were, with all of his hydraulic lifting equipment. Can't get away from Cuban assassins fast enough. Also, a great way to intro something. Not the intro to the episode, but the intro after the first commercial break. Robot legs! Just the one line, robot legs with a question mark. Because after that, I say, I'm intrigued. I want to hear more about these robot legs.
The process, I love that Krieger drugs him instead of actually anesthetizing him.
Yep. Yeah, that was great. The green fluid in the shot. That was great.
The old coffee mug standard, which is coming up again. People need to stop drinking coffee at ISIS. That's
Yeah,
a good
you
way to
really don't pick up a coffee mug that you didn't pour the coffee into yourself at ISIS, guys.
Also, when you think about it, Krieger sent Cheryl on a mission to get him some things that he needed, which were made up. But I mean, I don't think, knowing Krieger, that he would have done that without a reason. He never got that stuff, so.
Oh, the things she got were real, like a defibrillator is real. I forget what else was on that list.
But it was funny when Ronnie said, "Oh, those are all made-up words." She was like, "My mind blown." That was great.
Or no, she said, I don't think that's a real word. I think it's made up. They all are.
Yeah.
Think about it, man. Words only have meaning because we give it to them.
And with her all tripped out on what I assume is LSD gummy bears, that had to be a real mind the F-bomb, as it were. But Krieger goes ahead and performs a surgery without it and ends up amicably enough. Ray is back on his feet, and what I'm hoping for now is that now that he's back on his feet, I want to see him out in the field again. Because those episodes are great. When he's paired up with Archer, when pretty much the only competent agent at ISIS is out in the field with Archer, it creates a really fun dynamic. So I'm glad
really
to have
good
him
conflict.
back.
I am too, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do now. Hopefully he gets back and maybe we can have a little sex life again too.
A little bit of a sex life.
Let's get him back out there and
I don't know.
into the field.
As long as God is still
Literally.
in his life, he'll be fine. Right?
Speaking of Ray's sex life, that brings us to interesting little thing we stumbled across on the internet here.
Our news and gossip section. Here we go.
TV News.
So, we know that Archer ends up in the danger zone quite often. But this is the first time that I've seen anyone call out the show and say that the show has gone into the danger zone. The show has gone too far, okay? This is according to an article on Slate. It was written by a gentleman named Mark Joseph Stern. And he was of the opinion that last week's episode, The Wind Cries Mary, was, and I quote, a gay panic gag, and it reinforced stereotypes about gay men. He was not a big fan. I'm wondering, where do you guys fall on this issue?
Well, you're going to start with me here. Okay.
You said you had a lot to say.
No, okay. So starting out from my perspective as a gay man, I do not think that there was anything to get off in arms about. I think that you have to take it with a grain of salt. This is Archer. This is, he's a flawed character, as we talked about in earlier episodes. He's flawed. This is an adult comedy. This is, this is something that people need to have a sense of humor and not take it so seriously. And I don't believe that it was anything to get worked out about. That's just my opinion.
I'll go ahead and take the next draw.
The gauntlet is thrown. It's in your core.
So I guess when you look at that particular episode, the whole joke was about how freaked out Archer is about it. That's the joke of the episode. It's not against the gay thing at all. It's against Archer, and that's what you're laughing at. So I think the way where they twisted the comedy, I think there's nothing wrong with it. And as well as you said, it's an adult comedy. You should be able to make controversial jokes. And it's like, I feel like Archer's sort of like South Park, where they make fun of so many things that you can't take it too seriously. And if you're going to get offended by Ray, Gillette's, the whole gay thing from last week's episode, how could you not be offended by this episode with Krieger essentially groping a dead girl, which to me would be even more crossing the line. But I mean, Archer always throws out stuff like that. So I think, I don't know, I think this guy was a little too tied up, or uptight. I'm reversing that.
I think this article came from a point of a little bit of hypersensitivity. I do think the show Archer flirts with
disaster.
The line. I think it flirts with the line a lot, and it certainly can be uncomfortable sometimes. Like there's the seed for believing what this person believes, I think, is there. I think it's a comparison that can be drawn, or an opinion that can be held. But I think some of the evidence he cites in the article is a little bit off. For instance, specifically, he mentions the moment when Ray basically raped Cyril, because Cyril's been knocked out with the heroin. The thing about that scene is that he wasn't the first person to rape Cyril in that moment. Pam did it. Archer and Mallory took a liter of his blood. Like, everyone did bad things to him. Also, the article makes a very specific point that Ray Gillette is a stereotype of a gay man by being over-sexualized, and I think that's sort of hogwash. He is definitely one of the least, like, sex crazed.
Out of everybody on the show.
Pam is more sex crazed. Cheryl is more sex crazed. Cyril's a sex addict. Mallory, Sterling are all people who
pretty
are.
much every single one of them.
I just
Way more
named
than
every character in this shit. And then the other thing, the gay panic, I think, it's less gay panic and more the nature of my relationship with my best friend is completely different than what I always thought it was.
What I presumed it to
Panic, if you will.
I'm not gonna stray too far from you guys here. We should outline that this complaint was two-part. One was that Ray Gillette is sort of a stereotype of a gay man with hypersexuality, which again I think is just totally bunking wrong, fundamentally flawed on an analysis level. The other argument being that Archer's friend in The Wind Cries Mary, because he rapes Archer at the end or admits to it, and because he wants to start up a bed and breakfast and he's willing to kill other agents to be with Archer, that is too unflattering. That's the position that the article takes, that this is too unflattering. And my response would be, look, you don't, as a writer, always have to, because you make a character gay, all of a sudden make them a pinnacle of what it means to be the perfect man.
Exactly.
You know, these are flawed people, okay? And when you're writing characters, sometimes they're going to be flawed. They should be flawed because people are flawed. So to say that every time that you have a minority or woman or someone of a different sexuality, that you need to make them this perfect, ideal, what have you, I don't agree with that.
Can I bounce off of that? And I do want to get into comments real quick. Something I want to bounce off of that is I think starting a bread and breakfast, which was his specific point of like going all out, is more of a thing about love. It's just that he realized that he loved Archer, so out of love he wanted to start this bread and breakfast thing and do everything he could, which you could see any character of any sexual orientation doing, and that's kind of a typical thing you think of is like, oh, let's start a restaurant together, that's how we're gonna start our life together. That's just a typical, like, I think of that just as a typical love thing. But I do want to jump on some comments real quick, guys. I just want to thank on iTunes, JTSA9. Thank you so much for commenting on YouTube. We had Yomi001 and Fabian YouTube. If you guys have actual comments about the show, I'll read them out for sure. So guys, definitely make sure to comment, and I'll read them out and we can comment on them.
Man,
Word.
We got real here for a second.
We did.
This was the realest
Intense.
we've ever gotten on Archer. Oh man. Well, I think that about wraps it up for what we're doing here. Let's move this into spooky theremin music territory.
And now, your AfterBuzz.
You really pulled out the theremin word?
Listen,
We call it out every week, bro.
I haven't heard that.
after 3 seasons, however many
1,000
that we've done,
seasons.
I never get tired of that theremin.
Infinite
It's
lifetimes.
Beautiful, beautiful noise.
It really is.
Predict something.
You stole my thing.
I know. Swept it right
All right,
up from
so
under
that
your feet.
I want to go off what I said earlier. I want to see now that Ray has his cyborg legs. I want to see him go back out in the field. I want to see that conflict with Archer, and I want to see him go on a date. Let's get him back out there.
So my prediction is actually something John was saying. This is what I was thinking, and then you said it during the show. But that we'll see Cheryl and Rodney end up together, and it's just Cheryl, or at least Cheryl, just craving Rodney. I think we're gonna see that, and I definitely think, as I was saying earlier, we're gonna see a lot more of the Armory.
Again, I've already touched on that. I think we're gonna get a little bottle episode in the Armory. I also think we're gonna see more of Ray. I think we're gonna see him confront Archer, and I think Brett's gonna get involved.
I'm not gonna say anything until you yell at me to predict.
Predict something.
Good. Sorry about that. I think that we're going to see more of Ron, but I think we're going to see more of Ron in a straight man capacity, because he was sort of, although he's weird and old and racist, he was sort of the voice of reason in this episode, where he's telling Matt, we're like, listen, just leave it alone, they'll be fine, I know what I'm doing, I have my life together. And that's something that we've sort of gotten away from in Archer, having any sort of straight man. So I think that's going to be his function moving on.
Can I throw out a prediction real quick?
Absolutely.
No? Oh. Okay, so I'm going to go off a little bit what you guys are saying with Ray and getting back into the dating scene, maybe tying that in. I think that Ray and Barry are going to have something to do with each other between their hatred of Archer with their cyborgness. and I'm gonna say that maybe even see Ray and Barry dating each other with the cyborg dating site or something random like that. He's not dating Barry, he's dating other Barry, because other Barry's gay, but Barry's straight.
Ooh, interesting.
You know, that's funny though, because we kept on seeing it. Every episode seeding and being fed in how much Ray hates Archer.
And now he's a cyborg, so even more hate going on there. All right, guys, that about does it for us. I'm Greg Guinness. You can find me at Generic Maverick on the twits.
John Barrett at J. Dugan Barrett.
You can find me, Dave Klein, on Twitter at the Dave Klein. That's Klein.
And I'm Scott Moore. You can find me on the old Twitter at SMAN80. That's SMAN80. And also, got to say happy birthday to Jessica Walter today.
Woo! Happy
That's
birthday.
right. Before we forget. Big
Happy
7-2.
birthday, Lucille.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.